Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a Criminally Basic podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Hannah.
And today's episode is just going to be a quick little update on an episode we published a little over a month ago in April. So, to recap that episode, on April 13th, 2021, the Kristin Smart murder case broke and 2 arrests were made. Paul Flores, the suspected murderer, and Ruben, Paul's father, who allegedly helped conceal the crime. If you haven't listened to our episode titled Breaking News, Kristin Smart, I highly recommend you go have a listen before you listen to this episode. For those of you who have listened to the episode but need just a little bit of a refresher, Kristen was a college freshman back in 1996 when she mysteriously went missing after attending a party on May 25th. Actually, the 25th anniversary just passed a few days ago.
Yeah. They had this big walk for it too and stuff for it.
They did. It was very nice.
It was beautiful.
Paul Flores, who was arrested and has been charged with murder, was really the only suspect at the time, but there was nothing that could definitively prove that he was the one responsible. So no physical evidence, there weren't any witnesses that actually saw him commit the crime, there were witnesses that saw him with the victim, but nothing past that.
And so, being the last person to see her alive, kind of suspicious.
A little bit, especially when you consider that, he was being, I don't believe he was being like super aggressive, but there was a point where the girl that they were both with, like he had tried to kiss her and it was really kind of awkward and she felt odd leaving her with him, but kind of like pushed down that little voice inside of you that says, oh, maybe this isn't right.
Yeah.
And did end up leaving.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a bad feeling isn't enough to, arrest someone and convict them of murder.
Yeah. And also, I don't believe he was very cooperative with the police after this happened too.
No, he wasn't. I did a little bit more research, and I don't think I mentioned this in the original episode, but there was evidence that he had like really cleaned his dorm building, and he actually ended up dropping out and moving out not long after Kristen went missing. But there was, evidence that there had been some pretty heavy cleaning done. Again, that doesn't mean that he did it. I mean, back then, hindsight is 2020, so we know that that he was most likely the one who did it. But
it could have back then, not defending him or anything, but back then it could have just been, oh, he was smoking weed in his dorm room.
Right. There were a multitude of reasons why he, wasn't arrested 25 years ago when this first happened.
And also, back 25 years ago, people weren't as true crime minded as they are now.
Very true. I think that with the rise of, the internet and social media, people know a lot more about true crime and about the people who commit, these terrible atrocities. It is definitely much more a part of our like mainstream culture than it was back in the 90s. To finish up this little recap, there were 2 arrests that were made last month. Police do suspect that Paul tried to sexually assault Kristen, and unfortunately, the statute of limitations for rape has run out in the 25 years since this murder took place. But fortunately, there is no statute of limitations on murder, so they are going full throttle into a first-degree murder charge. So before I go any further into this episode, I do want to make it really clear that everybody involved in this case is under a gag order and therefore cannot legally speak about any ongoings as things proceed, at least at this point in time. The Smart family did release a statement, and I'm not going to read it because it's very long.
We'll post it somewhere.
Yes, yeah, we will. And it just thanks everyone for their hard work and for their support. I can't imagine what they're going through at this time. I can imagine that it's, some sense of relief and closure, but that it's also opening up those wounds that have been there for 25 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So officially, Paul Flores has been charged with first-degree murder, and he has entered a plea of not guilty. He's being held in jail without bond, so thank goodness for that. Ruben has been officially charged with accessory to murder, and he has also entered a plea of not guilty. Originally, he was being held on a $250,000 bail, but a judge determined that he isn't a flight risk due to his age, because keep in mind, he's like 80 at this point.
Yeah, he's like 80 something.
Yeah. So the judge didn't think that he was a flight risk and reduced his bail to just $50,000.
Yeah. But also he has an ankle monitor on and he's only allowed to leave for doctor's visits, court, lawyer stuff, and that's it.
Yeah, they are keeping a very close eye on him because we're coming to kind of the biggest question of this whole case at this point, which is, where is Kristen's body?
Yes.
This is something that we still don't know. Originally, when police made the arrests, they said that they knew where the body was.
Mm-hmm.
However, upon, looking for said body,
Yeah.
they have found that it's not where they believed it was. Originally, they thought that it was in their backyard.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
It was in the backyard under
Under
it
like
was
their
like
porch.
under like their porch, yeah, because there was like a big, it wasn't freshly poured concrete, but there was concrete in an area that does not make sense for there to be concrete.
Right. So that's where they thought that her body was initially, but they went and looked, body isn't there. And according to some sources that I read, they said that it looked like it was recently disturbed and that the
Yes.
body was most likely moved recently before the arrests were made.
Yes.
So,
Oh.
Hannah,
Yes.
I would like for you to fill us in on these lawsuits that have been occurring, because Hannah has been keeping me informed in the loop with all of this, and I feel like you have some thoughts and opinions that you would love to share.
I do have some thoughts and opinions I would love to share. So, okay, less than a few hours after Ruben Flores was released from jail, the Smart family dropped a lawsuit on him, but also Ruben's ex-wife now, Paul's mother, Susan, and Susan's now husband. So, Susan and her boyfriend, Mike McConville, in the lawsuit, it alleges between the time of the arrest and the first search, Paul, Ruben, Susan, and the boyfriend Mike, in the dead of night, with alleged witnesses, moved Kristen's remains to an undisclosed location.
Right. So this lawsuit indicates that all of them were involved in moving Kristen's body. Some sources are saying multiple times. I have not found that to be consistent across all of my sources, so I'm not going to really name anything, but
I have also heard that as well.
Right. I think everything is just so up in the air at this point.
Yeah. And also, there's so much rumor and speculation going on that it's just kind of, you've heard it enough that it possibly could be true, but you're not 100% sure.
Right, exactly. So we will see what happens with that lawsuit. Initially, when Kristen went missing, her parents filed a lawsuit against the school, but unfortunately that one, fizzled out because the school wasn't responsible for it. And so, just couldn't stand up in court.
And then they also filed one before against Paul.
Yes, they did. And that one, I believe, fizzled out too, didn't it?
Yes, it did fizzle out. But the thing is now, I think this one has a lot of grounds to stand on because they now have DNA evidence linking things. And what we know now, the information we know now that happened in the 90s, plus DNA, I don't think it's going to get thrown out.
No, I don't either. So Kristen's parents, Stan and Denise, are alleging severe emotional distress in their lawsuit, saying
Which I can't blame them.
Oh, absolutely not. They say that, they have been severely emotionally distressed for the last 25 years. And within this lawsuit, they are seeking compensation for an amount that has not been determined yet, but that will be determined in trial at a later date.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where this lawsuit is going to go, where the trial is going to go. I mean, trials take a long time to even happen in the first place. Yeah. So I'm not anticipating this moving quickly, at any point in the future.
I know they had given, and one of the many court hearings, they had given the trial to last about, I think, 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, so don't quote me on that. But they think the trial won't physically last that long.
Right.
But just getting to it.
Yeah. My biggest question at this point is, are they going to, really try to find her body before the trial, or are they going to try to do a no body murder case? Because at this point they have charged them with murder. So If they find the body, that's great, but I don't think that you can just assume that they're going to find it before the trial happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I've seen trials with a lot less evidence than they have here convict and get life sentences with a lot less than what they have here.
Absolutely. I'll be curious to see where this goes, and I am very excited for this guy to be brought to justice. Thank you all for listening to A Criminally Basic Podcast. If you'd like to learn more, check us out at A Criminally Basic Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
And check out our sources as well as photos on our website, www.acriminallybasicpodcast.podbean.com.
Thank you so much for listening.